Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials on any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com.
So let me tell you, I missed out one point. Thanks for pointing it out, Sujit. So the thing is, by default, whenever we start Eureka, it does not start in self-preservation mode. It does not go into self-preservation mode. When it will go into self-preservation mode is if more than 50% of heartbeats are not reaching Eureka. That means if there are 100 instances registered with Eureka, and if more than 50% of heartbeats are not reaching Eureka, then only it will go into self-preservation mode. Otherwise, it will be normal mode only. Okay. More than 50% of heartbeats are not reaching. More than 50% of heartbeats are not reaching. Will it be possible in a live production system? Maybe do you think 50% of the machines may crash? Very rare actually. And maybe if it happens, it might be because of a temporary network hiccup, right? So that is the reason why Eureka will go into self-preservation mode if more than 50%. So if suppose among 100 instances, if only 10 heartbeats are not reaching, it will not go into self-preservation mode. If 10 heartbeats are not reaching for 90 seconds, it will remove those instances from registry. It will go into self-preservation mode only if more than 50% of the instances heartbeats are not received. And after some time, once it starts getting the heartbeats again normally, it will come out of self-preservation mode also automatically. That is the concept. Sujit, is it correct? Is it clear now?
Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense. Okay, so that is what your question.
Yeah. And one question is, you told there is a shutdown hook, right? Can we control that so that so that Eureka can still keep the register that particular service in the registry, instance in the registry?
See, why do you need it? Actually, the JVM is really getting shut down. Why do you want that information to be in registry again? See, once it is shut down, later we may start one more instance, not the same instance. And for this instance, the IP, port, everything might be different. So why do you want it to still be in registry? We want it to be removed definitely.
Okay.
No, that is not a requirement. That is not a valid use case. So there is nothing, even there is no option to set it. That will not be required.
Okay.
So next question is, if we set the expiration to 0 seconds, what happens to self-preservation mode? Okay, I think this also gets answered by explaining about self-preservation mode.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do we set register Eureka to false in Eureka server config when we set up a cluster? If every Eureka server is a client to another Eureka server, then shouldn't it be registered? Okay. So actually, let's say there are 3 Eurekas in 3 zones, Eureka 1, Eureka 2, Eureka 3. Normally, if microservice is a client, let's say S1, it will register with Eureka by default because Eureka.client.register with Eureka is true. So that is the reason why it will go and register. Why it should register? Because some other service S2 might need to look up for S1. If somebody is looking up, we need to register, right? Otherwise not. In case of Eureka, when you configure as a cluster, This Eureka will act as a client to Eureka only to fetch its registry, right? This Eureka need not go and register with this Eureka, because will somebody look up Eureka, one Eureka inside another Eureka? Is there anybody looking up? No, right? When there is nobody to look up, why to register? It's just a client to retrieve the registry, that's all. So that is the reason in cluster you say register with Eureka false, but fetch registry true. That is the reason. Is it clear, Sujit?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all about the questions. Okay, so let us go into today's agenda. Today is really important topics. Yesterday we discussed about hystrix and I showed you a simple example as well. So now quickly I will revise this hystrix concept and we'll go into a little bit deeper configurations and everything. I started showing the configurations, but we'll go a little bit deeper, right? So what was my yesterday's requirement? Quickly let me revise. So this was my Eureka. This was my booking service. This was my routing service. Both of them will register with Eureka. Now on my booking service, whenever I create a booking will be created. Then according to my use case, for that booking, I need to call route it. Create a route for that cargo, right? So what booking service has to make a REST API call to routing service and ask for optimal itinerary. It will give the response and then the booking service will update. Now the booking service has to make a REST API call to routing service. It is dependent. Now the thing is, if REST API, if this routing service is down, the circuit between this is closed, right? So I want my booking service to execute the fallback. This is one of my initial requirement. So to execute fallbacks when this is down, when the call fails, first reason I told you, we can use hystrix. Most people will fail that hystrix is for executing fallbacks. No, that is one of the use case to execute fallback, but there are a lot more. So let me explain you quickly. I explained you, but let me quickly show you. First of all, to add hystrix support in booking service, what are the steps in my booking service? First step is to add hystrix as dependency. This I did. Then I need to enable hystrix, second step, right? Then wherever I'm making REST API call here, I did a change. I wrote an interface called as cargo routing service, and this is the implementation. Here I have the logic to make REST API call, but this call may fail. If exception is thrown, I want this fallback logic to get executed. This is a fallback method. Remember, the fallback method should be having same signature. That means same argument types and return type. Same signature as the original method. So here is my fallback method, where I'm just right now writing a log, system error, and then returning an empty transit path. Okay, no itinerary, empty. So what I told you yesterday, to execute the fallback, you just need to annotate this method with hystrix command and specify what is the fallback method. That's all, right? That's all you need to do. Automatically the fallback will get executed. Now let me explain you what is happening internally when you annotate this class with hystrix command. Okay, now let me tell you here, Where am I calling this cargo routing service at find optimal route? In my external cargo routing service class, what I'm doing, I'm auto wiring on the top of interface. This was the interface and this is the implementation, right? So here I am auto wiring that gets injected, and here I am calling a method on the cargo routing service, right? So let me explain you by just drawing a diagram. This is my booking service app. Assume this is my routing service. In my booking service app, I have a class called as external cargo routing service. External cargo routing service, right? And also I have a class called as cargo routing service IMPL, which is having a logic to make REST API call. So cargo routing service IMPL. This is a class cargo routing service IMPL, which is having a logic to make REST API call. Okay. Now, one of the method of this class is annotated with Hystrix command. So actually, this Hystrix is internally using AOP, Spring AOP. If you know Spring AOP, we use AOP to create proxies. Aspect-oriented programming in Spring will actually create proxies. So if you know, if there is any method in your class annotated with transactional, what will happen? A transactional proxy will be created, right? By AOP. That's how transactional annotation was working, right? Similarly, Hystrix uses AOP, aspect-oriented programming of Spring, and it will create a proxy. If there is at least one method in your class annotated with Hystrix command, a proxy will be created. So I'll represent the proxy here. A proxy will be created. The proxy will be implementing same interface as the original class, right? So this proxy will be created. Now, in my external cargo routing service, whenever I am auto wiring on top of interface, this proxy will get injected here. So actually in my external cargo routing service, the original implementation is not injected, a proxy is injected. So here, whenever I'm calling a method, actually I'm calling on the proxy, right? Okay. Now this proxy, what is the logic inside this automatically generated proxy? Whenever we call a method on the proxy, it will create an object called as Hystrix command. Hystrix command. It will create an object called as Hystrix command object. One request is nothing but one command actually. It has to execute the command, right? So proxy will create an object of Hystrix command and call Hystrix command.execute. It will ask it to execute the command. Now this Hystrix command internally is injected with something called a circuit breaker. Already in Hystrix, there is a class called as circuit breaker. You can visualize circuit breaker class like this. It is having a method called as isOpen, like yesterday I explained you, right? IsOpen method, which is returning a Boolean. So whenever we call a method on the proxy, proxy will call Hystrix command.execute. Hystrix command will internally call circuit breaker.isOpen method. And if isOpen method returns false, that means circuit is not open, circuit is closed. Then what? Hystrix command will execute the original implementation, which will make the REST API call. Okay. Suppose if this call is a failure. Suppose if the call is a failure, the control comes back to Hystrix command.
Hey viewers, our Mastery in DevOps engineering program can help you to hone the skills necessary to succeed in high-level DevOps positions. So, what are you waiting for? Enroll now and earn certification that show you are keeping pace with today's technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Hystrix command will increment the failure count. Yesterday we discussed, right? Failure count, success count, timeout count. It will ask circuit breaker to increment the failure count, right? And then Hystrix command will execute the fallback method, whatever we have configured, right? Let's assume that there are multiple failures. Failure count is greater than a configured threshold. Yesterday we were discussing about threshold. What will be the logic here? If percentage of failures greater than threshold, by default the threshold is 50. If it is greater than threshold, return true, else false. This is a simple logic I told you, right? It will be somehow like this. So after some time, if the percentage of failures is greater than threshold, another request came. The circuit breaker dot is open returns true. Then in that case, Hystrix command will not actually invoke the implementation. It will directly execute the fallback, right? This is how it is working. Any doubts till now? How it is internally working? It's because of a proxy. Internally, the proxy is using Hystrix command and also a class called as circuit breaker. Right. Now, what all we need to do is, we don't need to do all this. We just have to annotate the method with Hystrix command and specify in the configuration what is a threshold percentage, right? And yesterday I told you that we will not be having these counters inside the circuit breaker class. We'll be maintaining these counters inside buckets, right? So if I am having counters variables inside circuit breaker, what will happen actually? At some point of time, if success count is 10,000, right? At some point of time, if it is 10,000, now if 100 failures occurred also, the percentage of failures is what? 100 by 10,000, 1%. So circuit will not open because threshold is 50%. But 100 failures is really a serious issue. So we don't want to, and we don't care how the application was before 1 hour, 2 hours. For me, what happened in past 100 seconds is much more important. So I need counters only for past 100 seconds. So in Hystrix, what they did is they created buckets. You can assume that these buckets are nothing but a list. Suppose if I configure the number of buckets as 10, the list size you can assume it as 10. In these buckets, we'll be keeping all the failure count, success count, timeout counts, etc. Now, whenever the circuit breaker logic has to update the counters, it will update the counters on the last bucket, right? Now, we have to configure a sliding interval. The buckets will slide interval. And let's say slide interval is 10 seconds. That means the buckets will slide to the left side after every 10 seconds. And after 10 seconds, what will happen to the last bucket? It will go out. And these counters will again become 0 in the first one, right? So I'll be maintaining buckets. I'll be maintaining counters in this sliding buckets. Now, at any point of time, I'll be having counters in these buckets. For number of buckets is what? 10. And sliding interval is 10. That means 10 into 10, 100 seconds. The counters will be there in the buckets for recent 100 seconds. And whenever I'm calculating percentage of failures, only recent 100 seconds counters will be used. So that's how it works. So as a developer, what all I need to do is I just need to configure how many number of buckets, what is the sliding interval, what is the threshold, etc. Right? Okay. So how to configure? Yesterday I was showing you by taking you to GitHub wiki. So I searched for Hystrix GitHub wiki wiki page. Here is one. Oh, here is the one. And if I go to configuration, here are all the configurations. Yesterday, I was talking about this configuration. If you want to configure error threshold percentage, there are multiple ways. What is threshold percentage? I was talking about this percentage, right? 50. How to configure this? There are multiple ways. One is whenever I'm writing Hystrix command, here I can configure the property circuit breaker dot error threshold percentage. By default, if you don't configure, the value is 50. If you want to override it, you can configure the value here on top of the annotation along with annotation. But in my application, if there are a lot of such methods annotated with Hystrix command, I'll have to duplicate this. And if tomorrow, if I don't want 60, I want it to be 40, I have to change again at multiple places if I'm writing like this. So I want this configuration to be externalized to my properties. So if you want to write this property in the YML file or .properties file, what you need to do is, if I click on it here, it will show. This is the key to be used in your YAML file or .properties file. It's hystrix.command.default.circuitbreaker.error threshold percentage, right? So you need to configure that. 1 minute. Yeah. But this is the default. What do I mean by default? Suppose if there are multiple microservices with which my service is communicating. Suppose if I have S1, S2, S3, S4. Now S1 is having /A/B/C. A is calling this one, B is calling this one, C is calling this one. Let's assume. Now in S1, I have logic to make calls to S2, S3, and S4. Now whenever I am calling S2, for S2, I want the threshold percentage to be 50. For S3, I want 60. For S4, I want the threshold percentage to be 40. Maybe for different services, I may want to have different thresholds, right? So in my S1, if I write this property hystrix.command.default.circuitbreaker.error threshold percentage, actually for all the circuits, for the circuit between S1 and S2, for circuit between S1 and S3, S1 and S4, for all circuits, the default value will be applied. But I want a different one. So what I have to do is, whenever I'm writing Hystrix command annotation, I know this method is making a REST API call to what? S1 or S2, right? So I know, let's say this is making a call to S2. So what I have to do is I have to configure in this Hystrix command, I have to configure a property called as command key and give some name which is unique for that service. Let's say S2 key. Then in your YAML file, you have to write hystrix.command. Here you have to replace this with S2 key dot circuit breaker dot error threshold percentage. Or if you want to configure for S3, again one more property, hystrix.command dot S3 key dot circuit breaker dot error threshold percentage. Like that, in your YAML file, you can configure for each service invocation a different key and a different value. Okay, just look at this and let me know if you have any queries, because I'll be using this Hystrix command key in my entire discussion later. You understood the difference between default and when to use this command key in the YAML file. Any queries?
So, Shiva, since we are
Yes.
implementing all the Hystrix and circuit breakers, each and every method of the microservice, is there any way we can I mean, like to covering the property file, making it one shot.
I didn't get your question. Sorry, can you come again once?
So the Hestic and circuit breakers, we are implementing. I mean, see, we are putting right. So almost we are implementing this Hestic for example, fallback method, right? So we are implementing almost every method in the. For example, we are in the cargo routing service, right? So
For
similarly, I
this
have
method, I have a fallback, right? Okay, you
okay.
want to generalize the fallback method?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Is there any way we can do? Since it is needed for all the services, whichever I'm going to implement or whichever I'm going to write, it is common, right? All the services, it is needed. So is there any way we can make it at 1.65?
Yes, there is. There is a way to register a default. You can write a code.
Okay. Oh,
But that said, there is a way to write through coding in the Bean configuration through coding. Yes, there is a way. But that said, for each see in this method you have a logic to make a REST API call, right? For this REST API call, you want a particular fallback logic to be executed. For each REST API call, you want to give a different fallback logic to get executed. You cannot have a single fallback logic because see, the fallback method should return the same object, as similar object as expected. See, it's all about contract, right? Suppose, wait. Suppose you're making a call to /a on S2. In your code, you're making /a. /a is returning according to the contract. Let's say it is returning data of object X, right? So when you make an original call, you're expecting /x. So when fallback was executed, suppose if this is down, when fallback is executed also, don't you expect same contract again X to be returned by the fallback also? The fallback logic also should return similar X, not something like Y.
okay.
So I mean to say the fallback logic will be different for different REST API operations according to the contract of your REST. So it is actually most of the cases we should write a fallback logic which is specific to this REST API call. It cannot be generic. But later I will show you, if possible, in gateway. We'll see gateway. In gateway, sometimes we need to have a generic fallback logic where I can say the return type is object, right? And I can write a generic logic. So there, maybe sometimes in a gateway kind of a thing, not in your microservice, in a gateway kind of a thing, you might need to maybe sometimes specify a fallback logic. That is possible, but in your microservices, you need to have a separate method, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So now let us go with other configurations, important configurations. You understood about this one, right? Now, circuit breaker dot sleep window in milliseconds. What is the sleep window? By default, it is 5 seconds. Can you guess what is the sleep window? I told you. Let's say the failure count, percentage of failures, let's say at a particular point of time, the percentage of failures have crossed the threshold, whatever we configured, say 50. My logic will return true. Okay. Now, the service was down for some time. My circuit is open. Let's say my service is up right now. So what will happen in the logic? Whenever I make a call, it will call circuit breaker dot is open. Is open will check the percentage of failures is still greater than 50. So it will always say circuit is open. The calls will never go, right?
Hey viewers, trying to get into DevSecOps? Enroll for our DevSecOps certified professional programs and earn the certification that shows you are fit for these technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
So, not only based on percentage of failures, what we want is after circuit is open for, let's say, 5 seconds, I don't want any calls to go. After 5 seconds, even though the percentage of failures is greater than 50, maybe I want to go and try once, is this up or not? Even though the percentage of failures is greater than 50, after 5 seconds, I want this method to return false. If this returns false, the command will execute this implementation and this will try to make a call. Then if it is success, the count is success. If the request is success, then it will update all the counters to 0 because now the circuit is closed, right? So even though the percentage of failures are greater than threshold, after a sleeping interval of 5 seconds, I want my logic to return false so that the call will go through, right? So once circuit is open, how long should the calls, how long do you want the calls to not go through? That is nothing but sleep interval. See, this property sets the amount of time after tripping the circuit to reject requests before allowing attempts to again determine if circuit is again closed. This is the one, right? By default, it is 5 seconds, 5000 milliseconds, right? And as like earlier, if you want to configure sleep time at annotation level, you can use this property circuit breaker dot sleep window in milliseconds, or if you want to default for all services, you can use this one. Or if you want a different sleep time for service 2, service 3, service 4, you can specify the command key, just like earlier I explained you, right? So that is the sleep time, right? Now, one more important thing is request volume threshold. Okay. This property sets the number of requests in one rolling window that will trip the circuit. Okay. Now, I'm maintaining the counters in these buckets, right? These buckets will slide to the left after every 10 seconds. And there are 10 buckets. How much time will it take for these counters to go out? 100 seconds, right? So I can say that this is rolling bucket. The buckets will roll to the left side. And this bucket will roll entirely after 100 seconds. Or let's say the sliding interval is 1 second. That means what will be when will this entire buckets roll out? 10 into 1, 10 seconds. Now, what we want is, suppose, let's take a scenario, all the counters are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Now, first call came, it was a failure. Failure count will be updated. Failure count is 1. Success count is 0, timeout count is 0, right? Now, second call came. What is the percentage of failures right now? Tell me. Only one call was a failure. There are no other calls. Only one call came. One call was a failure. The failure count is 1. Now, what is the percentage of failures? 100%, is it?
100, yeah.
So second request itself will satisfy this condition, and for second request itself, circuit will be opened, which is not looking good. So they have kept a condition. In one window, if there are minimum 20 failures, then only this percentage of failures will be calculated. If less than 20 failures, we will not even consider these counts for calculating percentage of failures. That means in one rolling window, we want a minimum of 20 failures in one rolling window, right? Then only it will be considered. So if you want to open a circuit, if you want a circuit to be opened, what minimum you are expecting? Sorry, not 20 failures. Sorry, a mistake. Not 20 failures. Minimum 20 requests should be there, whether they are success or failure. Minimum 20 requests, not only failures. Okay. So minimum, if there are 20 requests in one rolling window, then only the percentage of failures will be calculated based on the counts. Otherwise, it will be ignored. So if you want the circuit to be open, minimum 20 requests has to be given in one rolling window. That is a one request volume threshold. This property sets the minimum number of requests in a rolling window that will trip. For example, if the value is 20, then only 19 requests are received in a rolling window. Circuit will not trip. Right? In one rolling window, if 19 requests failed, all 19 failed, circuit will not trip. Right? So that's the one. Circuit breaker dot request volume threshold. This is really important. Otherwise, the circuit will open every time, most of the times, right? So this is one important setting. So again, if you want to configure this at the annotation level, you can use this property. And if you want to configure in YML for default or for particular service, this is the one, right? Now, you understood about request volume threshold. Any other queries till now? Okay. Now, whenever we are configuring Hystrix, this Hystrix command will invoke the actual IMPL, which is making a REST API call, right? By default, Hystrix command will use thread pools internally. So by default, whenever Hystrix command has to execute, Hystrix command will be internally executing using us. You delegate to a thread pool. So the main thread which is calling this method will not execute this. The main thread will call Hystrix command.execute, and this execute method will delegate the rest of the task to another thread in the pool. So a thread in the pool will make a call, and the main thread will wait until some timeout, Hystrix timeout. So if the service is slow, then what? The other thread will be waiting for response, but the main thread will wait for this thread to come back with response until a timeout. Okay. So if the response does not come in timeout, it will get a timeout exception, and the fallback will be executed. Do you remember? I was discussing about bulkhead pattern. So when I was discussing about bulkhead pattern, I told that each service invocation will have a separate thread pool configured, right? So actually, Hystrix allow me to configure this thread pools also. By default, the execution of the command will be done through the threads, right? Sometimes you don't want these thread pools. You want the main thread to be executing this method also. How to control that? You may want to control whether you want a separate thread pool or not. So what you can do is here there is a property called as execution.isolation.strategy. The default one is thread. The default value, it executes on a separate thread, and concurrent requests are limited by number of threads in the pool. Just like I said, if the number of threads in this pool is 10, so what are the maximum concurrent requests that can go to this service? 10. This is what bulkhead pattern was, right? Right. So if you want bulkhead, then the default strategy is thread. Suppose if you don't want thread pools, you want the logic to execute in the calling thread, then you have to configure this execution.isolation.strategy as semaphore in your property, right? Now, let's say that is thread, right? So how to configure the thread pool? Here are properties, thread pool properties. You can configure what is the thread pool size. The property is core size. If you want to use it at annotation level, you can use like this. Or if you want to configure at the YAML file, you can use hystrix.threadpool.default.core size. If you want single thread pool for all services, but you may want a separate thread pool for service 2, separate thread pool for service 3, separate thread pool for service 4. Then what you need to configure is hystrix.threadpool, the thread pool key. What is the thread pool key? Actually, whenever you're writing hystrix command, just like command key, we can have a thread pool key. And I can just give some value. Here I'll say my or S2 thread pool key. So do you have to use this key when you're writing in the YAML file, right? So here the core size, maximum size, all the thread pool related properties you can we can configure here, right? So by default, the isolation strategy is this one. And one more thing is important thing, very, very important thing, execution.isolation.thread.timeout milliseconds. This property sets the timeout in milliseconds, after which the caller, the calling thread, will observe a timeout and walk away from command execution. I told you that the main thread will delegate to this thread pool, and the main thread will wait for some timeout for the command to complete. If the command is not completed in that time, it will throw an exception, as I told you, right? So that setting, how to configure the timeout. This is a property, execution.isolation.thread.timeout in milliseconds. And the default value is 1000 milliseconds, 1 second. Actually, intentionally, they have kept 1 second as a value because they want you to change this based on your scenario, right? 1 second may not be sufficient if you are making a database call in your logic or whatever, right? So you have to change this timeout. So these are the various settings on Hystrix. Either you can do all these settings on annotation level, or you can do the settings at YML level also, right? Hope now everything is clear, and hope you understood how to configure a thread pool for each service. Hope you understood how to configure this bulkhead pattern also for different thread pools for different service invocations, right? Now I'll ask a simple question, answer me if your understanding is correct. Let's assume that S1 is making calls to S2, S3 and S4. /A operation is making call to S2 /B to S3 like this. Now I want a separate thread pool for each of the service invocations, right? What I can do, as I told you, you can configure these properties. Hystrix.threadpool. A separate key for all operations to S2, separate key for S3 and all you can configure. But what if you don't configure these properties at all? In your S1, you have not configured any thread pool related properties. You are just using annotation like this. Excuse me. You are not using this. Okay. You are not using this thread pool key. You are just configuring like this. What will happen? There will be a what? Default pool. By default, what is the default thread pool size? 10. So there will be a default pool for all service invocations, right? So that is a mistake which most of the people doesn't know and do it. If you don't configure anything, a single pool will be configured for all. Single pool for all of them, right? So that you need to understand. So you need to configure thread pool specific to each service. Clear?
Hey viewers, are you looking for formal training on SRE practices? Take our SRE program. This course will teach you how to successfully implement site reliability engineering in the modern day 24/7 services. Kickstart your SRE training today. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
So then we understood all the configuration of Hystrix. Now let me take you to the next step. That's okay. In my application, I have multiple services, service 1, service 2, like that I have 20 services. In all the services, there might be a number of Hystrix commands. One command when you are making one REST API call. For each REST API call, one command. So in your application, there might be multiple Hystrix commands, multiple circuits basically. You want to observe what is the status of each circuit, whether circuits are closed or open, in what state they are. You also want to observe what is the status of thread pools for each command, for each service. It will be good if there is a dashboard where we can see everything, right? Where you can see the metrics in a graphical dashboard. So Hystrix comes up with something called as Hystrix dashboard, where it can show the metrics of each of the command, like what is the status of the command, what are the thread pools, right? How many failures, how many successes, all the statistics on a dashboard. Now, Hystrix dashboard is a separate application which we need to start. Somehow, if the metrics in your microservices can come here, if metrics in your microservices can come here, then it can display in dashboard. Now the question is, how can the metrics of these microservice instances, metrics means what? Failure count, success count, etc. All the counters, thread pools, and status of circuit, all these metrics, somehow we need to send it to dashboard. Then only it can show it in graphical view. So for that, actually in Spring Boot, there's a module called as actuator, Spring Boot actuator. What all I need to do is, I just need to add actuator as a dependency in my microservices. This actuator will expose a lot of endpoints starting with /actuator/star. There are a lot of endpoints which can be exposed by adding actuator. So when you have actuator and Hystrix also in your microservice, there will be an endpoint called as /actuator/Hystrix.stream, right? So /actuator/Hystrix.stream will be exposed. if I just add actuator as dependency here and a Hystrix, then what I can do, I can make my dashboard to get the counters by hitting this endpoint and show them graphically. That is what is dashboard. Let me show you how to work with a dashboard to monitor your streams. Let us see. So for this example, I'm going to use a separate thing. So for demonstration of this, I will use separate apps to show you clearly. Here I have created two apps just for demonstration so that I can clearly explain you all the concepts. Hystrix first app. Here if you see, in this first app, is a main class. I have enabled Hystrix, right? And also I have added Hystrix in pom.xml, and also I have added actuator as dependency. Both are added. Then if I just add actuator as dependency, the endpoints, actuator endpoints will be exposed. So in my YAML file, if you see, here I am configuring management.endpoints.web.exposure.include. So actually in earlier versions of Spring Boot, if I just add actuator as dependency, automatically all endpoints were exposed. But now in this Spring Boot from 2.x version onwards, only whatever you write here, these endpoints will be exposed. Others will not be exposed. Right now, for using Hystrix related endpoints, I know according to the documentation of Hystrix, I know that this is the endpoint to be exposed. So I have already configured, right? Then in my REST controller, just for demonstration, there is a REST controller. Simply for demonstration, I have a simple method which is returning string. And here I am writing randomly, here I'm generating a random number by using random littles. Randomly, if this condition is satisfied, it will return a response properly. Otherwise, I configured it to throw exception, okay? Just to simulate an exception. Assume that here you have a logic to make a REST API call to some other service, which will generate an exception, okay? Just to simulate an exception, I'm manually throwing this, right? So if this method throws an exception, I told, okay, this is a fallback method to get executed, right? So if exception is there, I should get the response, whatever is given by my fallback. If no exception, I should get this, right? That's it. Now, let me start Eureka because it is registering with Eureka. Let me start Eureka from Commons here. Then I will start my first app. Let both of them start. Then once it starts, I'll give a request to slash. And let's see whether fallback is executed or not first. Then I'll talk about dashboard. Okay, I think both of them are starting. Yep, let me just check Eureka. I'll go to localhost 5001. This is Eureka and first service is registered. And the port number is 8080. So I'll give a request to localhost 8080/. See, I got the return value as fallback. Why? Because randomly generated number is not satisfying, an exception is thrown. I got fallback response. Okay, I'll refresh it once more. Again, I got fallback. Refresh again. Oh, I got no response. Right? So sometimes I'm getting response, sometimes I'm getting fallback. Right? Fallback response. Now, what I want is, what I want is, I'll go to localhost 8080/actuator/histrix.stream. This endpoint should be exposed, right? Let me give a request. Oh, it is downloading a file. Okay, let me cancel it. I'll copy this. I'll open Chrome actually. In Chrome, I'll try to give a request for what? /actuator/histrix.stream. Just see what is happening. Hey, in Chrome, it is displaying continuously. It's a stream of data. See, continuously. What? Ping is the request. This is the response. Ping, response. Ping, response. A continuous stream of data. Here is a matrix. It is sending all the metrics. So if somehow I can hit actuator/histrix stream, I'm getting continuous stream of data. See here, it is scrolling always, right? I'll stop it. Now, what I want to start a separate application called as dashboard and point it to histrix.stream so that I can see dashboard graphically. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll show you how to create your own dashboard. Very simple. Step 1, if you want dashboard, step 1 is in form.xml. You need to add Histrix dashboard as dependency. Okay, just I'll comment out this part. As of now, I'm just having Histrix dashboard as dependency, nothing else. Okay. Then in my Histrix dashboard, in my main configuration class, there's an import, unnecessary import. I'll just remove it as of now. What all I need to do is I need to enable Histrix dashboard, and this need not be a Eureka client. I'll remove it. I just enabled Histrix dashboard. That's all. Okay. And in my YAML file, let me show you. In my YAML file, I don't need all this. Okay, better I'll copy all into a notepad. Step by step, I'll show you. Okay, I'll show you why this configuration is required and when it is. Right now, I'll just remove all this. It is not even a Eureka client. Now, server port I gave us 5555. What all I did right now? In my form.xml, I just added only Histrix dashboard as dependency. Step 2 is I enabled Histrix dashboard. And in step 3, I gave the port 5555. That's all. Let me start this dashboard. Dashboard is a separate app, and now it should start on 5555 port. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to your localhost 5555/Hystrix, I'll say. This shows me the dashboard UI of Hystrix dashboard. Right, now I want to monitor stream http:// what was the stream earlier I gave? This was the one, right? Localhost 8080/activator/hystrix.stream. I'll copy this and paste it here. Now I'll click on monitor stream. Now you can see that it is unable to connect to command metric stream. Is that running already? Oh, there was an exception in dashboard. Invalid header. What is it? Invalid header. Oh, it is really strange. A minute, give me a minute. It is coming. Let me refresh. Oh, it got it. Maybe some temporary. The request did go through also. So now, what is happening? I opened the dashboard, and in the dashboard, I gave this stream and click on monitor.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.